Okay, have you decided on topics for your local marketing project? And if so, let me hear them. Break them down. Madeline, what have you?
I was gonna do mine on Bangladesh and
Okay.
improving their healthcare resources.
All right, so Bangladesh improving healthcare resources. Okay. Anything else that you kind of spotted so far?
My improvement idea was creating telemedicine.
Okay. Telehealth, telemedicine, Bangladesh. Okay, great.
Mine was, sporting goods and Dominican Republic, so better equipment.
Dominican Republic sporting goods.
Like a big sporting goods.
Okay, so a large retail chain in the DR to help improve the access to Houston. Okay.
I wanted to put a wing stop in China, because they have other locations in different countries, but not China. And I feel like they have some flavors that would go well there, that people would actually appreciate there.
All right, an expansion of the franchise Wingstop in China. China has huge consumption, obviously, of chicken, wings, and you think that maybe we can create some flavors that kind of relate to that.
Yeah, they already have like two that would go pretty well there, I feel like, so. If there's one more, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right, baseball store. It's a little different, right? But is yours a total sporting goods store?
Yeah.
We're talking everything, golf, basketball, baseball, football.
Yeah, but I would probably, I don't know if I would do it, so I do like another company that focuses on cheaper products, so they can actually, you know, make some money. Because
Okay.
obviously, like, in other countries, they don't have the same amount of money as other countries to spend, you know, so I have to go for the cheaper products.
Cheaper product. And here we're talking baseball. Huge market for baseball players, obviously. Is that something that, have you seen a company that already kind of does that, like places in Central?
Not really, like the company is pretty large, I think it's like a growing company that's only in the US right now.
Mhm.
And obviously, having started working overseas with partnerships to
Cool.
I was gonna do like, maybe not Divvy bikes, but like the bike sharing companies in Brazil, like real specifically, because like from what I found, it looks like they have a bike sharing like not company down there, but it's like all through the government, like it's a government run thing, so there's like a big market for like private cars. Yeah, like bike sharing.
Is that just like Rio or Sao Paulo?
I mean, I was thinking all of Brazil, but specifically like starting in Rio, because that's where like pollution is obviously like the biggest issue there, and so like biking would be like a big way to help that, and it would be encouraged to do so.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Yes, you know, a lot of things to consider, right? Ease of access, app, credit card. Okay, Tim.
I had chosen the Philippines, and I was gonna do something with internet privacy for them because in several articles I found, it said that they were about as worried about that as they were about like getting robbed if they went to like a big sporting event or something like that. And so I was gonna try and work with that and kind of go from there.
VPN, like a virtual private network?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Alright. Okay, this all sounds interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see, you know, hey, thinking barriers, challenges, you know, opportunities, you know, we create a SWOT, a PESTLE analysis, all of that. We got quizzes coming up week 8, recommend week 6, so you have a little bit of time to kind of work with that. Week 9, we got spring break. And then week 10, we have our midterm exam. Right? We'll talk more about that a little bit later. Okay, who has a blurb? Is anybody that didn't do a blurb on Tuesday that has some? Okay, this one. All right. watch any of the videos dealing with Starbucks for this week? Should have been in Blackboard, some links, right? They were spending a lot of time on, CSR, right? To my corporate social responsibility. We'll talk about that at the end of the chapter. But here we're kind of focusing on how do we sort of evaluate demand. Two different types of demand: primary demand, secondary demand. Primary demand will be the demand of a specific market or industry or sector of goods. We could think of agricultural goods. We could think of maybe cheese, milk, dairy products. What do we do as marketers if there's sort of a decrease in people buying this thing? Do we kind of create a group with our competitors? We kind of advertise, but don't mention our names, advertise some sort of impetus to make people want to buy more shoes, right? Buy more milk, right? Some kind of groupings together. Do we not? Do we just focus on sort of our own brand, right? Which is secondary, right? Secondary demands that focus on a particular selective good, right? So we're thinking of, hey, there's a lot of things changing. One of the things that was in that link in Blackboard with Starbucks was how the coffee industry is kind of becoming highly saturated now, right? A lot of companies are getting in the game. They're starting to produce their own coffee beans, such as Vietnam. That's helping to eliminate a lot of the small farmers who are producing coffee beans for other sort of big roasters out there. What do we do about it, right? The game is changing. We see all of this stuff sort of evolving over time. How do we sort of react to this? All right, so we went quickly through these, but just to review, hey, things are shrinking rapidly, faster communication, transportation, financial flows, make things more competitive. Things are more highly competitive than where they were. People just popping out the woodworks with companies and having distribution channels in order to be highly competitive. Right? International trade is booming. Companies cannot stay domestic and expect to maintain their own markets, right? So you kind of, at this point, if you want to go big, you have to go into a foreign market. Eventually, you tap out of your own local market, right? There's a need for expansion in other areas. But there's higher risks, right? We say with the cultures, we got to figure out what they want, try not to be offensive, right? Culturally confident. We have to figure out the right time. Do we keep the same logo? Do we kind of rebrand in some way overseas? The financial systems over there, the political systems, do we get into with politicians? Is that not a factor? And also, what else do we do good in the community to kind of stand out? Right? Do we use some of our profits to build schools? If it's a very sort of emerging market, right? Do we do other things to expand the brand so that we have some sort of influence just out of the business? We talked briefly about Michael Porter's supply and competition, right? We need preventive and reactive strategies, right? We need to bargain power, right? Customers and suppliers, we need negotiations, right? Substitute products and technological alternatives, there's huge pressure there. Hey, we say, hey, we got a lot of laws here in the United States. Maybe we're going to a country that has very little. How do we do that, right? Do we kind of do ethical practices, or do we keep our ethics and our morals to a degree? There we go, primary demand, right? Demand for all potential suppliers for generic items, we say aggregate, right? Aspirin for a particular country, that's primary. We call it secondary when we talk about the specific sort of manufacturer of that aspirin, right? Or demand for transportation, right? We say it's low, try to educate the consumer. So therefore we're advertising, maybe we don't even mention our company, but we tell them the value of transportation. The value of something to a degree that can help increase the demand for a specific area. And then with that selective demand, right? We say demand to the firm draws brands in a particular product category, right? Here we're saying Bayer, right? So selective would be, hey, use Bayer, use Bayer instead of, just going for aspirin generic. And then demand to the brand, right? Particular brand. So we're talking about another sort of example, Procter & Gamble's Lotion liquid, right? Some environmental elements that may be converging. Political environment. Most of the world is tending to become very democratic. So even a lot of our Islamic republics around the world are starting to see that they're allowing sort of a lot more liberal sort of behaviors in their country because of tourism. Tourism, we're talking about cultural transference, music, arts, movies, entertainment. Saudi Arabia is becoming heavily involved in our athletics here in the United States, right? Buying the portions of teams, professional sports teams. They're not involved, right? With that comes the marketing, right? And the marketing may be a little salacious here in America. How do you kind of transfer that over to an Islamic republic like Iran, Saudi Arabia, and even Dubai? We say Dubai is becoming very more liberal. It used to be you get in trouble for certain things, now you rarely ever see that occur, right? Doing things out in public. They're allowing a lot more things. So the political environment is changing. Things are becoming democratic, which kind of puts us on edge, right? The U.S. is kind of in panic mode right now. We see very extreme measures being taken by President Trump because really we have so much competition now. So now we're in panic mode trying to figure out how do we get back as a competitive leader, right? China is killing us in so many different sectors and industries. They start to even master our culture with things like TikTok, right? They can master, see our behavior, our actual unconscious wants, desires, and needs. Another reason potentially why we may want to get rid of TikTok, it's really just a competition. Like it's a Chinese company, they're our competitor, right? But they're our largest, one of our trading partners too. But it's about competition. We can kind of think of them as like a sports team. We don't want them to have that competitive edge, which is probably most likely the case, right? All the other political stuff that's that go out there, they get support from the people about it, but it really is like, it's a competitive advantage, right? TikTok is booming, they can see what we like, what we don't like, and they can master that. They have Supreme, someone, I think did a presentation on it, was that you, Tim? The AI in China, somebody did that? Yeah. Okay, so you got AI in China, right? But they're using all of these technologies to kind of affect our culture, right? So yeah, it's really how they can. All right, there are some instabilities, right? A lot of political shifts, right? The U.S. we install presidents and take out presidents in certain countries, right? Who are unstable. Places like Bolivia, Venezuela, we have a lot of influence. Colombia as well too. Communication access, right? Satellite TV, internet cable, difficult to block. Economic environment, market-based economy, poverty versus rapid growth, right? Access to, sort of quote unquote, affordable luxury goods is becoming prominent. Means most of the world has some sort of smartphone, regardless of how poor the country is. So poverty is changing, right? We have to kind of reclassify what poverty is. The poorest person here in the United States is more wealthier than 98% of the rest of the world. Right? But things are changing. And then marketing practices and standards are changing, right? We're becoming a little bit more open to things. Like if you notice on social media everywhere, this is not just for like someone posting something in America, and I see a lot of this from Asia, East Asia too. Things are becoming like highly sexual in order to grab your attention be observing like these weird unconscious little things, and like, whatever, like a little clickbait, the image that they put up is something, looks like something else, so you should click on it. And then, it's like a totally different thing than what was, sort of there, right? So, yeah, we see a lot of things changing with marketing practice. Things that are becoming a little bit more salacious, a little bit more controversy sells, and a lot of foreign markets are using that practice. Supply and competition shifted from protected, domestic to global, right? So now we are trying to go back. We're trying to say, hey, put in the tariffs, right? Why? So we can try to change, make it here in America again. But then the people here are like, no, I kind of like people, they like cheap and tea. Right? They want cheap, but change the prices of cheap and tea, then people are gonna be upset. They're like, hey, make it in America, but then the theory is we can't. It's too far gone, right? The rest of the world has to really start capitalizing on what they do best. We don't do everything best, right? There's a ton of stuff we need to import. So to put in these tariffs, right, although it may seem like a good idea trying to bring things back to the soil, it maybe has its sort of depressing of doing that, right? Which means it just probably be higher prices for you and I for the most part. Right? But we're trying, right? So we're like, hey, our ideology now is like, hey, protect domestic, right? Bring it back home. Don't make it global, right? Don't leave it global. But, if we don't change our sort of ideologies, who knows what it'll be in the next 20 years. Many differences, especially legal environment, right? Things have become a little bit more lax legally. All right, economic factors, exchange rates, right? Low price export declines, import increase, laws on price, Big Mac index, right? What's the cost for a Big Mac all across the world? We always use that example because McDonald's is everywhere, right? So we can say, hey, what's a Big Mac for China, France, and the United States? Economic development, primary. When we say primary, things that like entire industries, so agriculture, extractive processes, coal, iron. A lot of things are being developed. Lithium-ion batteries are huge. Democratic Republic of Congo has some of the largest resources. Their economy is starting to boom because of that. Secondary things are manufacturing activities, right? So a lot more car companies are popping up from all over the world. Some of them are quite affordable with some good, decent technologies, highly competitive here in the United States. And then tertiary, right? Services, tourism, healthcare are also expanding everywhere. And then next, some other things with spending patterns, right? And purchasing power. We say classification of income. Here we want to classify less developed countries as low GDP per capita of $3,000 US, right? Or limited manufacturing and poor infrastructure. Quite a few countries where it's still, I would say, in this sort of category, but things are changing very quickly. Next 20 years, you will see very few countries in that position. Some newly industrialized companies, capable of exporting, infrastructure development, high growth rates, difficult in meeting demand, right? Such as Hong Kong, Singapore, right? And Taiwan. Highly industrialized. Hence why we've had sort of a lot of issues with Taiwan, right? Who controls China, whether it is an independent nation, right? We want to get involved in China's trying to take it back. Yeah, will influence a lot of the international trade, especially for electronics and things of that nature. And then we got advanced industrial companies, right? We're talking about our BRIC, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, and other emerging markets such as Colombia, right? We think of maybe places even like parts of Ukraine, like the western parts of Ukraine. And then we got potential cost reduction, shift emphasis developing to emerging, right? Things like growth and population increase, right? Low income but immense potential, right? Not simply recipients of excess production, new product modification strategies, right? Changing prices, right? Villages, etc. There remains huge differences in local consumption patterns, right? We think of things like climate. Things are shifting here, even Chicago, right? We look at the climate pattern. Chicago, 2024 was the hottest year on record ever, on recorded history in Chicago. 2023 was right behind it, so that means there are a lot of industries that could suffer from that, right? One of the things here is talking about an example of climate ice cream example, right? Which means that hey, it's becoming warmer in a particular climate, things just like ice cream would take a big dive on consumption. Local diets for food and beverages. People are becoming more health conscious, right? A lot of the social media information we see is about health and working out, exercising, eating right. That's changing the local diets. Then we have things like different meaning and context for similar products, such as color, certain symbolic attributes, something we have to always focus on. Right? We say, hey, red is energetic, but red can also be too alerting. Right? Alertness can mean danger. That's why we stop signs are red, right? Some emphasis of danger. So maybe red is not well in certain countries, but maybe certain places like the US and China, that's fine. Certain places may be too dangerous. They're seen as risky. They're a risk versus benefit. Rice in Malaysia versus the US, right? Here in Malaysia, mainly local Thai rice manufacturers. So it means that if you travel to Malaysia, good luck trying to find rice from other parts of the world. Not gonna really happen. There's a good sort of domestic interest in what is locally produced. Things are differentiated by the grade of the rice, right? Frequent main dish crosses social strata, so white rice is kind of conveyed everywhere, right? It's part of the actual social strata of the culture. Mainly plain rice, right? It's sold usually in 10 kilogram bags of rice, and it's also used for serving. So if you're gonna market rice in Malaysia, let's say you work with a local producer of rice, what's gonna be your marketing strategy? Like, hey, people actually serve it with their hand, or eat it with their hand? How do you convey that? You're gonna advertise, right? And some communication. If it is sold in this 10 kilogram bag of rice, how can you control price? How could you make your rice more expensive? It's mainly plain rice. You're like, well, that's another barrier to restriction. How would we get creative with that? How do we separate ourselves? Maybe you could, introduce a differentiation of grades in that to create some sort of unique context. Most importantly, you just probably use some sort of social status, cultural meaning to your bags of rice that you sell in order to differentiate yourself from others. Here in the US, we like rice cooking, right? So we're making rice at home, minute rice, rice roni, Uncle Ben's, something quick, right? Rice is important, but not that important. We got too many other things to be concerned about. So the emphasis is on convenience, right? Which is Uncle Ben's and rice roni. Differentiated by brand, right? We know Uncle Ben. We see Uncle Ben on the cover. Unfortunately, they changed Uncle Ben. How did they change Uncle Ben? Does anybody remember how they did? In Aunt Jemima?
They took the face off.
Took the face off? Alright? So yeah, we got our own issues, right? We say, alright, we took Uncle Ben's and Aunt Jemima's face off for social political reasons, right? But here we're saying differentiated by brand. It may be owned by the same company, but the brands, could still be differentiated by color, right? Rice are only totally different colors than minute rice and Uncle Ben's, right? We get dark brownish, kind of yellowish, for the different ones. Infrequent side dish, ethnic consumption, so we think of rice, we're thinking, oh, you go to a Mexican restaurant or an Asian restaurant, probably the dish will be served with rice. And more American style dishes, maybe not as much, not as frequent, right? So it's an infrequent side dish, usually found in ethnic sort of establishments, or in ethnic aisle in the grocery store. A lot of flavored rice, right? We want ours mixed with a lot of flavor, as opposed to being kind of made plain. Right? Small, quick, good portion, silverware, usually rice. Right? So we don't use our hands to eat rice or serve rice, so that'd be a problem. Right? We saw that happen. Example of consumer base. Well, consumer behavior for milk-based products in France and China. Right, so France consumes a lot of milk-based products, right? 92 liters a year. Diversified milk, cheese, butter, yogurt. Anyone's ever been to France besides French food? Was a lot of consumption of dairy products there? Did you consume a lot of dairy
I
products?
didn't, but like, I saw like, there was a lot of pastry shops.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of big boxes.
Yeah, there's a ton, right? You say France is about good chocolate, good sweets, excellent tea, usually with milk, right? Very few people are not drinking tea without milk. Yeah, a lot of cheese, heavy on the cheese, Italy, Spain, and France. Right, so a lot of dairy consumption. So we say things like, hey, butter, yogurt, right? Almost with every meal you're gonna consume some sort of dairy. Purchasing decision for the fridge. Basic quality being well controlled, price is a key factor. So it means like, hey, the fridge do dairy well. So it's not a huge decision on trying to figure out which cheese tastes better or which milk. It's just really the price. You don't have to think that much, right? Because that's what they do well is dairy. Consumers are used to milk-based products and receptive to symbols which emphasize genuineness, origin, organic manufacturing such as the label, the file, things that nature. So once again, you don't have to kind of worry about the quality, that's not a concern. You have to set yourself apart with, hey, the label, the file on the label. Where's the source from? Right? Organic manufacturing. China, not so much, right? So we say, hey, China only 8.8 liters per year, right? Consumption focused mostly on yogurt. So if there's anything they're consuming in there is yogurt. Product perceived as exotic, right? So dairy products there are kind of like, unusual in that exotic. Choice of high quality imported products, and most of it is imported, right? Seems having superior quality compared with the domestic products. We say, hey, maybe in China it's not that many cows, right? As opposed to maybe in Europe, right? So it's being imported. So it's being imported, we need things that are superior quality of some sort. Or maybe from neighboring countries, right? You might get cheese from neighboring countries. Consumers are uneducated for using this kind of product properly, especially as concerns conservation. Right? We know that things like milk, yogurt spoil very quickly. So what you need to do is express the education on how long you can store this product, how quickly it needs to be consumed, et cetera, right? And not be probably looking to individuals getting themselves sick. All right, primary demand in the national regional context influence, what we say by climate, physical environment, right? Your roads, your infrastructure, your buildings, right? How people navigate. Functional benefits searched by consumers, right? Utilitarian sort of mindset, right? Is it functional? Non-functional benefits, right? Some countries have a high emphasis on status and image, et cetera, et cetera. We've been to places like Monaco, places like that, right? Or where it's not so much about utility, but it's more so just about the status of the image. Interface function, right? Or non-functional, we come out in, or even electronics. Education and socialization aspect influence, right? Habits in early childhood and purchasing power issues. And then we have other parts which differ according to culture, such as social class or caste systems, right? We got to consider, is that important? Is the social class important in this particular environment? What type of products or services do social status minded consumers buy? Do they go to exclusive shops? We say in a lot of countries, particularly in Europe, luxury is huge, right? Think of Italy, luxury. Like how do you define luxury? It really doesn't have a clear definition, right? But we know that people purchase the concept, the idea of luxury, which means that maybe in those areas, luxury may be a way to go to kind of do hotels or clothing, things of that nature, right? Gender roles, who makes the buying decision, who shops? Does the females purchase the groceries, take care of household items? And we said, hey, in Scandinavia, like Norway, Sweden, the men, they make equally sort of want to buy groceries, taking care of the children, really what it is. Attitude change, right? Resistance to changing consumer behavior. So we say some countries value modesty. So having too much of those kind of gaudy, too much luxury stuff will kind of be looked down upon, right? How would one sort of market in that environment? How do you market modesty, right? How do you market sort of inexpensive items? Decision-making family models, nuclear versus extended, and children's influence. Here in the U.S., we see a lot of families broken up to a degree, right? That doesn't stop the purchasing needed for the children. But how do we go about getting the influence of those children on decision-making in those families? Whether they be extended step parents, right? Different sort of guardians, maybe grandparents taking care of children, et cetera, et cetera. Next, we got purchase, loyalty, salesperson influence on the buyer, right? We're talking about having a salesperson. You know, some items absolutely need a salesperson. Those are very technical. Think in the healthcare industry, how do you sell an X-ray machine? Right? You don't go online and buy an X-ray machine. From Amazon, you need somebody to tell you the technical specifications of it. Right? You know, somebody who can explain it in layman's terms. Talk about how things could possibly be repaired if it would go bad. But you need someone who has huge influence on the buyer, especially when it's very technical, electronics or something of the sort. And then post-purchase, consumer complaint behavior. Some people, hey, no returns, no exceptions, no exchanges. Right? You may not like that aspect. Some cultures may not like that aspect. Here in the U.S., we don't see it that often, right? Because of our rules and our regulations. Our culture, like, no, I want a receipt. I want to be able to return it if I need to. I want to be able to exchange it if I need to. If not, that's a huge problem. Culturally speaking, that's a huge problem. Other countries may have no receipt. There may be no receipt. There may be no way to express your grievances against the country. Here we see a ton of reviews. We go on Yelp, Google reviews, social media, leave our post-purchasing sort of complaints. When we say perception, shapes, colors, and space, right? Perception is huge. Because we all perceive things different, we interpret things in a different way, right? Shapes, colors, different spaces and orientations of things, motivation. People want to own to buy, right? Spend and consume. Do people not want to own? They only want to just lease or rent. They don't like owning things. There's too much risk involved, right? People want to consume, motivate to show others, right? To share or to give. Some of these basic attitudes related to product use. Learning and memory, right? Literacy, familiarity with product classes. Right? You want to introduce something unique to a particular culture, you have to make them familiar with it. You have to educate them. If not, they're going to be confused. Right? And we say when people are confused, they forget. Confusion leads to forgetfulness. Right? We remember things that are related, that we're familiar with, and that are very personal to us. That's how memory works. And even age. So we say, hey, age has a number to it, but the perception of age in different cultures are different. Right? People perceive that maybe 40s may be extremely young in some countries, right? And maybe 40s may be extremely old in other countries. Do we value the aging population? Do we feel that they have wisdom? Or are they abusing some sort of cultures? And then group influence. Right? So we think, hey, the United States is an individualistic culture, but being honest, you're like, hey, we're extremely influenced by groups. Hence why we have Democrats, Republicans. We have a two-party system. Right? You would think we're so individualistic that we do like 8 really strong political parties. Or 4 of them at least, right? This one wins and this one smiles. Like not only 2, right? Which shows that we have a ton of group influence, right? We don't want to feel left out in most part. Hence we begin to agree because maybe we just have a limited sort of alternatives, right? But we are highly influenced by groups. So how does consumer behavior reflect the need to self-actualize individual identity or manifest group belonging, right? Even within that sort of paradigm, we still want to stick out as individuals within groups. So how do we go about promoting individualism in a group context, right? Do you talk about the group first, you talk about how you stand out in the crowd, or do you just focus completely on self-actualized individual identity? And we have emergent patterns of a mixed local global consumer behavior, right? Things where it's kind of mixed between local and global. Example, European beers, pubs, right? Cafe bar or bar a cafe here is an example. We get things like central and peripheral consumption, context, and the need for a fine-grained approach to cross-cultural market research. Right? We say things just kind of blend in. European beers are essentially consumed by everyone, right? Which makes it highly competitive if you're in Europe, right? Because all across the world, people love Italian beers, German beers, right? Irish beers, things of that nature. Very mixed, local and global. So if you go to Ireland, they may have a ton of Irish beers, but they have a ton of German beer, Italian beers, even though they produce a ton of their own beers. Modern culture, we say, hey, social media has really made people individualistic, right? In some way, we all want to stick out. It's slowly moving to that. We think of like places in Japan and Korea, how rock and roll, pop, hip hop has had an influence, and so that really changed the culture there, the expression of fashion, or how people talk, the slang that they use. Probably goes against a lot of the traditional sort of customary ways of expressing yourself, right? And that's, may have some sense of resistance. And from the older community may say like, hey, we don't like this. These people are really becoming their own, right? They're embracing, quote unquote, individualistic expression. Causes issues. So maybe you say, hey, you know what, the change in that might change and, hey, we can no longer pick who your wife or husband is going to be, right? Right, because you're individualistic. A lot of issues there too. Your own decision making for schools and work and career, that will change. Which will have a huge change on the economies as well too. Because you're like, well, if people start to leave sort of the areas in the country would have a lot of strength, and then so those markets will start to sort of kind of go away slightly. You think of car manufacturing and like Japan, right? You think of Honda, Toyota, with those kind of companies suffer because of that. People may not want to go into automobile manufacturing for some individualistic reason. Strong emphasis on material achievements, right? Doing, having, not being. Doing or having, not being, right? So we're saying material achievements, strong emphasis. People love now the cars, right? The status and education for entitlement, kind of about lawyers, professors, right? Things of that nature. Strongly economic, commoditized time structures. Tendency to discard past in favor of future orientation, fairly high degree of utilitarianism. Right? So even think of here, we begin to dismiss the past, right? We're like, oh, the past doesn't matter anymore, right? George Washington, who, right? Benjamin Franklin, who cares, right? All sorts of things we dismiss because we want to be like, hey, focus on the present and the future. Who cares about that? But then, you know, that may be a mistake to a degree because like the past usually informs the present, right? It usually repeats itself, just like fashion. So we can kind of see things that are moving towards a specific sort of area in the future just by looking at the past. Culture-bound products, right? We have things that have rich cultural context. Shopping, consuming, disposing, right? How do you get rid of the product? Do you just throw it out on the street? There's a ton of waste in those communities, right? Huge cultural context. Relationship to physical environment, right? The people feel that they're part of nature. Even if you travel to like Colorado, Montana, Utah, Washington, you will see how everything is related to the natural physical environment, right? The houses are designed for that particular environment, right? They're log cabins, right? Here you don't see them in Chicago, right? Different sort of environment, right? Things just relative to the climate, the density, it's urban, rural, the housing, the flora, and the fauna. Anyone's ever been to Colorado? Right? Like you go to Colorado, you might have sometimes the Burger King's a log cabin sort of design, right? Or the Walmart or something like that, right? You're like, hey, that's pretty cool, right? Things have building codes, right? And zoning sort of laws to make sure that things are relative to the population, density, and flora and the fauna. Cultural or national identity, right? Strong bound products. Hey, what's the company that you think of that's strongly bound culturally to the U.S.? Like a product that represents America in some way. Like, always promoting themselves as some sort of American. Ford. Ford, right? Like, hey, Ford is culturally bound. The pride of American vehicles, right? Because we all think of Henry Ford being one of the first people to do systematic car manufacturing, right? The assembly line, the advent, and things like that. We love our pickup trucks, right? We love a good Ford F-150 strong sort of national identity on how we work. Then we have things like language, right? Culture-bound language. Relationship to others, display, show, and share. Right? Complex, high level of interpretation, and local knowledge. And the nature of the product, non-durables, clothing, food, and cleaners. Okay. Well, now here we got a presentation, and then that'll be it for today.
So I found my article is actually leading up right to the Super Bowl, but it's basically just talking about how sports drove most of the streaming signups. I just thought it was interesting because, especially with marketing, like nowadays, a lot of the streaming sites they tend to market themselves like TV channels used to, so they like bundle packages and stuff like that, and it's basically just turned into like cable television all over again. So it's kind of interesting how they market it. And so the 5 events that led to the greatest like signups were all sports events. So I forget like the exact order, but it was last year's Super Bowl, which was aired on Paramount Plus, and then the NFL they partnered with Peacock this year and last year, and they started streaming games on Peacock. So some of those were like the game in Mexico City and London, and then the Summer Olympics were also on Peacock, and then most recently like the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight drove the greatest sign up for Netflix. So I just thought it was interesting, like sports events, they tie now into like streaming services. So like a certain streaming service will get to promote or air like one sports event, and then it'll drive a bunch of people to sign up for that, and it seems to be working. So.
How do you feel this changes kind of the network sort of industry? Like, is it making things, is it eliminating a ton of competition, or is it making things kind of easier?
I feel like at this point it's really eliminating competition, because I think Netflix was like the first to kind of do what they did. I think for years now we've had like Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV, Paramount Plus, like they've all kind of come out with their own. And so I think that created a lot of competition, and I think now that they're all partnering and bundling, like we're gonna be back to 3-4 options of like what you want to do.
Yeah, I've been saying like the NBA has like had decline in viewership, like people becoming out slightly disinterested in watching games.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, when it comes to games, like what could be the best approach to getting people more to watch them now?
I mean, I do think that there's somewhat like I think that's like a different issue. I think that like sports betting has affected a lot of like the viewership, and so I think that's honestly had a larger effect. But I do think bundling will like help with the viewership somewhat, because I think a lot of people, it's hard when you like your favorite team is this team and you have to go here and watch them, and then you want to watch this team here and this team here. So when they're like bundling, I think it'll give people like a greater selection so they can start to watch all their favorite sports again without having to like pick and choose. But yeah, I think the greater issue is probably something other than just how they view it.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, like, all right, so what we're saying here is, hey, people probably don't watch as much TV as they used to, period, right? They're on their phones or their laptop.
Yeah, shorter media.
Yeah, sure. And then 2, people don't need that many choices. They need specific choices, right? Like, they follow the Dallas Mavericks, they probably only want to watch Dallas Mavericks. Probably not interested in having a channel, but all the different sort of teams on there. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. Any of your thoughts when it comes to streaming these sports sort of platforms? Did you buy any of these subscriptions? Like the J. Paul fight any of you? No? No crazy stuff? What about how did you end up watching the Super Bowl?
I just got home.
Was it on regular TV? Was it?
Yeah, I think so this year. I think it just depends. I think it's like, I really don't know how it works. I don't know how, like, Peacock, because I watched it live. And I watched it live last year, so I don't know why it like, but it seems to be partnered sometimes, like either if you don't, maybe it's if you don't have live cable,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't nowadays, that then your only other option would be to watch it through a streaming service.
Yeah.
So, I'm not exactly sure.
All right, excellent, thank you for that. Hey, one thing I did notice when I would go on the ESPN app, and there was like a pay-per-view, something going on, a boxing match or something like that. Like it literally, you were forced to see that when you opened up the app, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
It was a
have you
pop-up.
ever experienced that? Yeah, it's like the pop-up, and like, what if I didn't want to see that, right?
Yeah.
And like made it difficult to like get out of there so I could see the other, like, you know, the stats and stuff like that. They kind of forcing their way into like, at least see the impression to have it and so on, which is annoying to me, right? They kind of turn me off, but for others it may work too. All right, that is it for today, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll just maybe we'll, you know, come in with some more blurbs on Tuesday. And also let me, you know, kind of know where you are with your projects as you move along, whatever you want. All right, I'll see you on Tuesday.